Okay, let me know when you
Yeah.
go. Alas, me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your captain, Charlie, Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz. Oh, welcome back to a galaxy far, far away. A galaxy of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters. A galaxy of apostates and Mandalorians, and finding our way. For this is the way. A Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 17, The Apostate, The Mandalorian begins an important journey. Rick Famuyiwa, it's got a lot of vowels in it. Rick, they should actually give you a nice little interpretation key on IMDb, so you know who these people are. Is our director this week Jon Favreau and George Lucas, of course, really the founders of this feast. Jon Favreau gets the written by, Jon Favreau gets the created by for the Mandalorian. George Lucas gets, of course, the based on Star Wars by.
Right. The Mandalorian itself was a character created by Favreau, right?
That is correct.
So cool.
It is so cool. And this is, there are things I like about this episode, where they kind of replay certain beats from that we got in Book of Boba Fett. Because as you will recall, if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, you missed some important character growth for the Mandalorian. But they make sure to come back to it here. And what I think is a very interesting misdirect, as you watch the opening of this scene, which is the baptism of a Mandalorian, there is a part of you that very really, very honestly thinks this is a flashback to Din Djarin's actual baptism. It's not. It's just a kid who looks like him. Apparently, it's Jimmy Kimmel's kid. Oh no, sorry, right? Jimmy Kimmel's nephew. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's cool.
He's an actual nepo baby. So good for him. You know. But to be fair, he's a decent young kid actor, as young kid actors go. So I don't fault him that he happens to be somebody's nephew.
Nor do I fault him for using his privilege that he's born into to get something nice out of it. I would if I was in his shoes.
Oh yeah, and this is what I will always say. The biggest failure of the nepo baby argument is the difference between Ron Howard and Clint Howard's careers, because Ron Howard has never been on Star Trek, despite all of his accomplishments. It's like you don't always get what you want in that business.
No, but I mean, like, you could say, oh, he didn't work hard to get there, but you can't discount the hard work his father did to put him in that position to not have to work as hard, right? So not like it's earned through lineage. Somebody else did work for it, and it's not like nobody worked on it. You know what I mean?
No, it's like, they got an audition and they auditioned and someone said, yeah, that kid's actually pretty good. Okay.
And even if they didn't, even if they got on the coattails of the personality that is who they're related to, even that, it's like, okay, yeah, he worked to have that pull in the industry. So I mean, like, yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but getting into this, you were meant to think this is or I don't know if you're meant to think that, but I think
certainly did at first.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that. And to be fair, after Book of Boba Fett with all the flashbacks, you could see how that might be something. But in fact, this is some new kids' baptism. And within that, you actually get the baptism interrupted by a giant.
Now, that was an interesting moment. I thought what they were trying to build towards was the fact that he was interrupted in the midst of actually committing to that one piece of the vow that he would never
Mhm.
take his helmet off. The kid never finishes saying it. He's interrupted. So technically, he isn't disavowed because he never, that part he never really, he forgot to dot the T on that triplicate.
Yeah. That I get the feeling that when they do a screw up like that, they then go back later and fix it.
Fair enough. Yeah, but that's one thing that really made me think, oh, is that Din Djarin? Are they working towards the fact that, oh, it was a technicality, he's still a Mandalorian?
Yeah, well, but the thing is, and this is an interesting parallel when you compare it to the Book of Boba Fett's version and the Mandalorian's version, especially since we are told that there has been like this 2-year gap between the two episodes, which makes sense, I guess, in certain ways, especially when we see how much the world has changed after it. But in this moment, I do think it's interesting because, of course, in Book of Boba Fett, it's the armorer who basically tells him, yeah, you have to go to Mandalore and bathe in the living waters. And when he comes back, he's like, but if I do go and do that thing and bathe in the living waters, I will be cleansed. And I do love the way that the armorer sort of throws off this is the way in that moment. Because it is just this like, yeah, that's the way. It's literally what I told you last series. But
yeah, that's sort of like the byproduct of orthodoxy, right? You have to, your whole image is built on, no, we're by the book. It's in the book.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the argument from the armorer's point of view is, yeah, I told you that 2 years ago, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, if you did that, you didn't do it yet.
All right.
Go
I
to
guess I'll
freaking
wait till their
Mandalore,
next
go
visit.
find those living waters, man. But and that's, I think, is one of the interesting aspects of this, because it is this fear and this mythology about Mandalore. And he believes it's a dead world. He believes that no one can go there. So to him, it is the impossible task. The armorer, because she has the faith, says, if you believe it, it will be real. If you trust in the faith of the way, you will. Mandalore has living waters. Those waters are still there.
Does she know that?
She believes
or
it.
Is she flippantly saying, yeah, okay, go on your goose chase if you'd like?
No. Well, that's the thing, because that's the difference between orthodoxy and cultism, if you will. The cult leader never really believes in what he's selling. The orthodox person, I mean, if they're true orthodox, truly believes this is the magic. This is the power.
Right, but it could also be that the person's just like, okay, man, I'm trying to teach you, but if you don't want to learn, all right, man, be about you then.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a possibility, but I do think that I don't think if she did not believe the living waters of Mandalore were still alive, that she would send him on a quest.
She doesn't really send him on a quest. She lets him do what he wants. That's what it felt like. And I feel like if she didn't know the living waters were there, they would have formed a party to go check it out.
Well, here's an interesting aspect of this that, I mean, I don't want to get into spoilers here, but apparently the water they use when they're forging the Beskar, the water that has that little blue glow, perhaps water filled with midichlorians, that's the living waters, and that's a rare resource, but they seem to have it. So it might be that the armorers have a source of this because they know it's there.
Or they took some before they left, and it's like just this ancient thing that when the planet was being destroyed, somebody had like a little bowl or a box of it, and that's been like a
Yeah.
sacred thing ever since then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a limited resource,
Right.
however you want to call it. But in this moment, so that's the debate. So that's the thing. To me, the armorer is a true believer.
Right, but a true believer doesn't necessarily have to inform her decision in that moment. She can be a true believer and still be flippantly saying, "Yeah, okay. I mean, if you think it's there, go ahead, have at it. You know, get out of
Well,
my hair."
I mean, yes, except again, like I said, she's the one that first sends him on that statement. She's the one who tells him the
Or
way
I
you
mean,
can
like
be redeemed.
her reason for saying that could have been like, "Hey, look, there's no way back. The only way back is if you went to like a planet that doesn't exist anymore and go bathe in these waters that have always fizzled out and joined the atmosphere already. But if you want, I mean, that's the only way." It's kind of like
Yeah,
saying, like, yeah, if you got $1 million, I'll do it for you, but otherwise, get out of my hair.
that's a fair interpretation. I actually, and that comes into that deeper question about the armorer.
Yeah, because to
Is
me,
she
if she did know, there's no way they wouldn't lead a party to go try to reclaim their ancestral sacred heritage.
well? Except that the Death Watch left Mandalore, or were even cast out of Mandalore long before that, and it is so. Here's an interesting thing about Messiah legends, and that there are those in certain orthodoxies who believe that returning to Israel before the return of the Messiah is a mistake because it's making Israel be a physical prize to be won, a political prize to be won, instead of the spiritual destiny. Now, I have no comment on whether or not they're wrong or not, but that is something some people believe, and it could be that the armorer believes we can't return to Mandalore until the true leader of the Mandalorians arrives to take us there. And if they do come, so for example, if Bo-Katan had won the Darksaber and had led her people back, I think the armorer and her people would have come too.
Yeah,
But
I
because
mean,
she didn't,
is the only
she could
evidence
not.
for that the parallel lines of thinking to current real religions?
Yeah, because you have to give fake religions the same value as real religions because
I mean,
it's
okay,
because people are going to believe what people believe.
sure.
So if you can find people who believe one thing, it's likely there'll be a parallel. Here's the thing: we only have stories created from what we observe and believe.
Right. I still think that's a leap that borrows too much from the outside world. It doesn't have enough that informs that viewpoint for me from the world itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, like I said, to me, it's just how the armorer seems to behave. Because at no point does the armorer say, so, as an example within all of this, the armorer only asks you, have you done this? And you could lie. The armorer relies on people's faith, not to lie to her. And that's the thing. That's the real thing. Because she knows if you admit you did it, it's because you have faith. It's because you have faith in the way. And you
Okay.
know you can't lie.
I
And
mean,
because you can't lie, she knows you're worthy. You just have to grow into it. And it's like within everything that's happened, the armorer could have always, said, she could have given the in Boba in Book of Boba Fett the Darksaber back to Jean Favreau's character. She could have said, no, he defeated you. Give him the Darksaber. Now it's yours. But she knew he's not the one to lead us back.
No.
You know, I mean, that's the thing. She's manipulative. She's the boss of everything. But I do think that she actually has a spiritual path she's following.
Yeah,
Now,
but
whether it's good or
I
evil,
certainly agree that she has a spiritual path to she's fine. I just don't think it's that one. But I can see how you would, that I can see the arguments that would lead you there.
yeah,
I just fall on the
I'd
other
like to
side.
believe that there are people who have true faith.
Yeah, but again, true faith doesn't necessarily have to be just this, right? She can still have true faith and not know that the waters still exist.
No, she doesn't know. She believes. That's the thing. It's not about knowing. It's like, does heaven exist? I don't know. A lot of people believe it exists. I don't know if it exists, but many people have faith that heaven exists and base their life off of that idea.
Right.
And
I think what they're basing it on, the water was a small part of it. The idea is the creed, right? Their belief system, the things that they put barriers around. We don't do this. We do this. We always do this. It's those things that propel and drive them in the world. And I think the water is a small part of it. So I don't think this is like an indictment of their faith. Their faith is fine. I don't think this affects their faith much at all, or not.
And I guess what I would argue is that the waters are a big part of it. And I think that the fact that they still have living waters of Mandalore suggests that, this is actually really central to who the Mandalores are. That this is something not because, and again, even when we go into that initial ceremony, it's not in the living waters of Mandalore. It is just in water that they happen to be near.
So what it shows to me is just like the body of Christ and blah blah blah. It's not real. It's all a metaphor, right? So they've been generations without the waters. So I got to imagine that their philosophies have evolved to sort of adapt to the lack of this thing and still feel like they're connected to something holy and sacred.
Well, that's the thing, is some people have. So the night owls absolutely
No. They have. If they're bathing and baptizing in regular water, right? That is a metaphor for what they used to have. So so I think their view of their relationship to the faith has evolved since not having this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that it is now maybe going to be discovered would be a huge thing, not something that we knew that was there. We just didn't want to go back for it. I think it's much more interesting. Like, oh my God, the thing that we've been making metaphors for, it really exists. All our faith has been paid off, like that kind of is what I think we might be building towards.
And that's a real possibility. And honestly, like I said, there's so much you can. And for people who don't know, we're talking about the first 5 minutes of this episode.
Yeah.
It's like within this, there is so much.
Yeah.
And I think this is why, the Mandalorian is rightfully seen as this amazing piece of Star Wars lore right now, because this is where
well thought out, it's well planned, it's presented in a really, really clever way, and you immediately get like watching this, you're like, man, Boba Fett was a Saturday morning cartoon. This is like crafted storytelling.
I mean, and to a grand extent, I think there is an argument for that, and it is the idea of what are the different ways that people approach things in these universes. What I will say is that this is, to me, I think this is one of the biggest problems at times with stories and adaptations, and specifically in these kind of genre adaptations, where as it builds, the people that make it start reaching back into deeper and deeper lore.
Hmm.
And when you do that, sometimes the things that the fans are going to love are not going to get that mass appeal.
Hmm.
So when you pull out, ways to justify things that we've seen that were not popular, but because, well, we can make it, we can retcon it so that now we're going to see exactly how somehow Palpatine returned,
Hmm.
which is what we're getting in these things. I do think that there is a quality to it that a lot of casual fans can get turned off by. And I think this is something that I think we see with Marvel is that as the writers and the fans in the writing community want to do the bigger and stranger things, a lot of smaller people, like, well, not smaller people, but like people that have different views of things are coming in and saying, is that really what we want to do?
Hmm.
Is that really the story we want to tell? Or do I feel connected to this the way that a person who has been reading comics all their life is going to respond to this? But in this moment, I think it's really well.
I think they're
Mhm.
elevating the I don't want to say the medium, but like they're elevating the medium that these stories are told in. Like
Mhm.
traditionally, they haven't had this level of depth and nuance um, before. So I think they're changing it up, but they're making it better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree. I'm absolutely inclined to agree. I think that this is really good. But this is something I'm learning as I grow as a nerd, is that things that I like aren't necessarily what everyone else likes.
Hmm.
And it's like, you didn't understand what they were doing with that, or you don't get the deep cut. And
Hmm.
it's like I would say, no, Macy, it's a super deep cut, and everyone's like, I don't know, not for me, dog.
Yeah.
But we do see, so he knows he has to go back to Mandalore. He goes to, of course, back to I'm forgetting the name, but where we meet
His little mechanic friend.
no, before then he has to go back to the first planet, the first desert planet, which was actually, fun fact, a volcanic planet, not a desert planet. um where we see oh god, the guy who played Apollo Creed, blanking on his name all of a sudden.
Oh,
uh
right. The free society that doesn't want to be part of anything.
yes.
Oh, that was Apollo Creed. You're right. Holy moly.
Yeah, that's oh man. um man, wow, why is he not on the top cast here? um
Was it this
oh, Carl
episode?
Weathers, there he is, he's the second guy. Grief Carter, Carl Weathers.
Right.
I always like Carl Weathers because when he hosted Saturday Night Live,
Hmm.
he sang one of my favorite songs, which is "What About a Rainbow."
Huh.
Um,
Interesting.
yes, it is a very silly scene, but I sing "What About a Rainbow" at least once a day. And it
Wow.
was just Carl Weathers being the big tough guy, but he's going to sing this little sweet little children's song. But anyway, moving right along. But Carl Weathers is definitely enjoying being the magistrate
Hmm.
of the planet. He's got his cape on. He's got his two little droids whose entire purpose is to carry his cape.
Amazing.
Which, honestly, not for nothing, it reminds me of the freaking butter droid in Rick and Morty.
Hmm.
What is my purpose? To pass me the butter. And I do wonder if these poor little, if these cape droids have that as sort of, what is my life about if I'm just the cape droid, or are they like freaking
This
Hitchhiker's
is the
Guide to the
toughest part of my day. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, yeah, cape droid. Oh no, stairs. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't like the stairs. But you
His
know what?
guys working minds that developed the purple lung, who knows what planet, and
Yeah.
my job is just to carry this dude's cape. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Thank you for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love that. But and we get a little showdown scene with the pirates. And we do see that, grief can still give you grief. He's like, they say, you've gone soft because the former bar is now a school,
Yeah.
which I do like in that idea that no, we're not going to do that anymore. This is now a school. This is where we educate our kids. And there's some symbology in this idea of transforming what was once a place of ill repute, a hive of scum and villainy, into no, this is now where we're going to educate our kids. And it's about building out this frontier town. But of course, he's still sorry, grief Karga. And when they say he's gone soft, he shows his piece because he's still packing.
Mm.
And you also see the Mandalorian stand up. It's like, you might not be in the depth you think you are, pirate.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is Beskar. You can see this is Beskar, right?
Yeah. Well, no, but what I like is that Grief is the one who gets in the shots. Like the first couple of shots, he's like, and he's doing white hat shots. He's like shooting the guns out of their hands.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to gun you down in my street because I know that's bad politically. But I will show you I can shoot the gun out of your hand, and I want you to think about what else I could shoot if I was a less nice person.
Right.
And then of course Mando just shoots him down because that's what he's there for. He's also, and of course, Grief is also there to try and recruit Mando to be his marshal. And again, this is interesting in the idea, which is the idea of, it's about temptation from the past. Where Grief is saying, yeah, you can go to the dead world, bathe in the waters that may not exist, or you can stay here with your kid. We'll give you a nice place right near the hot springs.
And you could take your helmet off whenever you want.
If that's what you want, if you want to keep your helmet on, hey, we don't judge.
That's true too, yeah.
I mean, really, that's the thing about it, is like, they're willing to adapt to him because they need a good marshal. I mean, clearly Grief can handle himself, but he knows,
But if he's constantly doing that, who's going to make the decisions?
Mm-hmm. And he wants to sit in his office and wear his cape. He likes the cape, He's
right.
got his
and a society, being run that well and keeping the bad element out takes some planning and some work, and somebody's got to do the thinking part too.
Yes, and that is what he's doing. He wants to get a good marshal in, and hopefully he can get one
on building schools, man.
Yeah.
That's why he wears the cape, because he's building schools. He deserves the cape.
Yes, there we go. I'm not faulting him for the cape, but you do get this idea of the excesses and richness of politics in it.
Right, so, right. But you also see the works that are
that he's accomplished.
Exactly. So I don't want to act like he's sitting.
And arguably, I'd have to go back and watch season 1 to see if he has a less fancy cape. He may have always been a cape man. It's just now he can finally afford cape droids.
Yeah.
That's always the thing. It's like, you can always want a cape.
Yeah, they might even be being punished. Right? They screwed something up. It's like, yeah. Now you gotta walk around holding my cape just so, like, shame.
Could be. I don't know what droids do to get punished, but it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they didn't get his coffee on time. They spilled his tea. I don't know.
But basically the reason he's there is because he wants to get his IG-11 back. And to me, this is the best part of it, because it actually really says that death does have consequences, and they're not just going to undo a death because it makes us feel good. Because IG-11 sacrificed himself. IG-11 died a hero. Don't bring him back as a lich to be the evil
And
thing
also
that
said something
returns.
interesting about like droids themselves. If like the programming has been deleted, if all those memories have been, he goes back to base programming. If you reset the factory settings, right? All that life you lived, all those, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like that essence of a soul or whatever, the place where your being is doesn't exist anymore. Interesting questions about droids and their sentience.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I do think that there's an aspect to that, which is the idea of, IG-11 sacrificed himself and had that noble death and probably doesn't want to come back. Like, whatever droid heaven is, he's good, dog. He lived his life. You can't just call him back because you need a droid that can spelunk, you know? And that's the thing, because he's looking for his spelunking droid. And and we get what is it, R4D5?
R4D4, I think.
Yeah, it's I used to think it was R2D5. Um, years ago when he first came out, and that may be my own little Mandela effect about him. That I want to say he was an R2 unit because they do refer to him as an R2 unit in the thing. So I think they were originally supposed to be called R2 units, and there was a red one and a blue one. There was R2D2 and R2D5, and the R2D5s were red, but they've obviously retconned that in a way to make them not be all R2 units. They're all different designations. However, they're doing it. R4D5 is an interesting character because depending on the story you read from a certain perspective, what happens with him is different. So when I first watched A New Hope, freaking R2D2 basically shoots R2 or R4D5 in the back, blows his motivator unit. So that because you see R2 do something, and then the motivator unit blows, and R4D5 gets taken back, and they get R2D2. In other subsequent stories, they've said that basically R4D5 blows his own motivator unit so that R2D2 can be bought to go with Luke, and because the two droids talk. He says, "Look, I need to go with the Skywalker kid because this is important. This helps the story.
This is the way."
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it is just this idea of the droids having their own conversations. What is also interesting is that in a completely different story, R4D5 is said to be a force-sensitive droid, which is a droid who is aware of the force, who can communicate with the force. And that's something droids aren't supposed to be able to do naturally. But somehow his wiring got so messed up, he actually can feel the force. Now, if that's true or not, we don't know, but that may come up in next episode.
If there is like a field of neutrinos and perturbations in that field are what the force is, perhaps he has some sort of, fancy infrared imaging technology that they don't know about, that through some happy accident was switched to that particular wavelength, and he can see the force. That would be interesting.
It would be interesting, and for what it's worth, I actually think there is some aspects of his character that feed into that. Specifically, the fact that he's scared all the time, apparently. Because it's like he's getting data that no droid is supposed to get. And that's an interesting concept. It's like, if you could suddenly see things that other people couldn't see, people would probably think you're crazy.
Yeah, or he could have PTSD.
Yeah. Although, you know, exactly what he has PTSD from is debatable, unless he's getting everyone else's PTSD. Because if he is force sensitive and he's just feeling everyone else's trauma, he could be processing it that way.
He's an empath robot.
He's having a bad day, is what he's having. He does not want to go with the Mandalorian, although they talk him into it when they give him an oil bath, because oil bath, am I right?
It's like a back attack to them, right?
Exact. It is literally a back to tank, because you actually even see he's got like wounds and burns on him. He comes out of it and he's like he's off the factory floor, you know.
Right. I wonder if it's like these new age polymer 3D printers that like has like a tub of goo that the structure emerges out of, just because like electrical impulses are taking like little moments inside the liquid and hardening them as it extrudes it.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say. Sure, why not? But also, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, not for nothing, it could be like electroplating, you know, where it goes into the solution, and the solution, through various chemical reactions, sort of coats it and rebuilds it and makes it
could be
look
like
very nice.
mechanical stem cells, right?
Exactly. Anyway, so that happens, and do we we go to Mandalore this episode, don't we? Do we?
No.
Or no? You know, it's hard to remember exactly what happens each episode when we're 3 episodes in. I'm actually debating if we get R2D5 in this or not, because actually now I'm looking, I'm not seeing. No, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, no. This is the one. Sorry, we're actually into episode 2. In this one, this is where he actually goes and speaks with Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan, yeah.
And this is where she's selling him. And it's interesting the differences between what the differences these years make.
Yeah.
Because in the second season, she was just saying we're going to return to Mandalore, and he's saying it's awful. And in the first one, that's right. Because now remember, this one is the one that ends on the pirates. So sorry guys, we gave you some spoilers for the next episode in this. But in this moment, he goes to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan basically says, you know, when I didn't come back with a dark saber, all of my followers left me. Which again shows the weight of that dark saber, that this thing that everyone is looking at as the mark of how you be the Messiah, which even shows that yes, a lot of Mandalorians feel if you are not the chosen one to take us back, you're not the chosen one to take us back. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. You know, it's like, you know, you can say you're the chosen one, and we can believe you're the chosen one, and you can do all these things for us to be the chosen one. But if you don't have the saber, I don't think you're the chosen one. That clearly there's something that clearly there's a lot of Mandalorians that believe in the magic. And to be fair, this is a magical unit. This is a magical galaxy. So that belief in that is real. And Bo-Katan is just alone in her castle with her one protocol droid. Which is in its own way super sad.
Yeah.
It's like Batman and Alfred, and it's like, you know, Bruce Wayne just with this one old dude that just takes care of him.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, in its own way, it's kind of sad, Bruce.
Yeah, but at least he's out there fighting crime. She's just brooding.
Yeah, really. Well, you know what? She needs an orphan.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to, is she needs an orphan.
Right.
I do like in this where Din is teaching Grogu about how to read star maps. and how a Mandalorian always has to know where they are in the stars, because he is training him to be a Mandalorian. He is saying, "You're a Mandalorian baby now. You pick the you pick the chainmail kid. This is my job now.
Right.
You are now my
I
founder."
wonder at what point they'll have to put a helmet on him that he won't be able to remove.
Mm. Well, clearly he has to be able to recite the vows, so it will be later.
It might be another 50 years before he can speak properly because their development is so slow, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, because he does start gurgling throughout this. So I do think we're getting close to where it'll be. So I will guarantee you by the end of this, he's going to say this is the way.
Oh, nice. That would be cool.
This is the way. You know?
Oh, my God. People are going to lose their mind. It's going to be so adorable.
It will be adorable. And you'll get, then they can sell the new doll with the pull string.
Talks. Yes, indeed.
Exactly.
I have to get a new one for my niece. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how they get you, Mozzie. That's
Hey,
how they
no, I don't
you.
mind it at all. I'm happy being an American consumer.
Yes. Well, you know, because like Grief Karfa, you like to live in a place where the streets are paved and there's not pirates everywhere.
Yeah. I like Xboxes.
Exactly. Who doesn't? I want a cape droid, you know?
Indeed. Bring on the future, man. I love it.
But anyway. Okay, moving along. This does end with, of course, I'm gonna be honest with you. Based on how this episode ends and how it begins the next time, with this cliffhanger of we had a beautiful battle, and I gotta say this, the asteroid belt battle is awesome. And I do like just how, if you are a Mandalorian and trained from a very young age to just be a warrior, how outmatched how outmatched every gunslinger and pirate that came to it later really is.
And that's what gets me about that moment with Grief Karga. Like, you see, that's Beskar. That's a freaking Mandalorian. What are you doing posturing up against a Mandalorian? You're all gonna die. What is wrong with you?
Well, see, they think that they're just showing off to Grief. They think we can take Grief. He's an old man.
Right, but Mando's...
They're not even thinking that they're not, but this is the thing, they're not giving adequate weight to the fact that he's walking around with a Mandalorian behind him.
It's crazy.
You know? Well, you know, they're pirates. If they had better sense, they'd be pirate captains, not pirates. You know, I mean, that's like the only person that actually makes out as a pirate is the captain. And even if he takes care of his crew, you know, it's like, are you really doing better than if you just, you know, were a cobbler back in your village?
I guess they're more scared of their management than they are of the Mandalorian. Fair enough.
Exactly. Well, but you know, even that, it's a petty fight to pick. You know, to say, I want to drink at this school. I'm sure they have a bar. It's not like this is not.
Yeah, they didn't come there for a drink. They came there looking for a fight.
Exactly. They came there to fight, to make a statement to the powers that be. Don't think you can kick the pirates off this world. This used to be a pirate world.
Right. I think they were just auditioning. It's like, hey, man, your town doesn't have any bad guys. You looking for some bad guys? We'd make some great bad guys.
Yeah. You know. And to be fair, I think that's a fair cop. You know, it's you do need an organized crime element. That was,
you know, if you're gonna bother people for taxes for protection money, come on, you need some sort of threat to protect them from, right?
Well, exactly. You know, and you know, it's funny. I'm watching Picard right now, and there's a little bit in that about a Vulcan gangster. And he basically says, well, he basically says, you know, crime is inevitable, so it should at least be logical. You know?
Oh man, that's a hard criminal to beat, man.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, but it's Star Trek, so of course, you know, the heroes win out the day. No spoilers, but if you really thought they were going to kill Worf in the third episode, no. But yeah, it's a good thing. But you know, the idea is that you probably will need a criminal element, but you need a criminal element that is. It's like the Hutts. The
Right.
Hutts were both the front facing political element and the criminal element, and that's sort of what you have on Tatooine. You have Boba Fett and being the criminal element and the political element. It's like we can both be the same way,
That's called the corporate world, right?
Basically, yeah, Or along the same lines, it's sort of what the Yakuza did in like post World War II Japan, where it's the idea that look, we're going to be the organized
Right.
crime, and
we are the regulations, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but yeah, so after the big dogfight, we do see Grogu and Din sort of cornered by the big pirate ship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our cliffhanger ends. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I'm super digging it. Can't wait to see where this goes. So excited to have this show back.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, this is just a good show. And, here's the thing, and I hate to say this about other properties I like, but it does remind you, like, yeah, you could do a really good show if you really, really wanted to,
Right.
It's like, this is so much better than even other things I like. And, it's like, I like Ant-Man, I like Willow, but it's like, but this is really good. This is
right. That
really,
all
really
seems like it's like to me. I always love making this analogy, but it's like R.L. Stine versus Stephen King.
Exactly. Oh man, but I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you about this with Stephen King. You can only read so much of him.
Oh really? I've been on a kick. I've been reading anything I can get my hands on.
To me, he just pulls you in so heavily.
Yeah.
It's like, I think if you read too much of him, you'll go mad.
Well, yeah, perhaps I am a little mad, but like I love the fact that you fall into these worlds and they are persistent, right? Like they'll be with you for a while. You get into one of these stories and even when the story ends, there's periphery tales that have consequences for the story that you care about. And then it forces you to read this, and then the world is even bigger. Like all of his stories exist in the same world in a relative sense because they're like multi-dimensional sort of interactions and
because they all exist in Stephen King's mind,
right?
But
that part of it is what draws me to it. It is the fact that these characters will always be there. He's created this sense that they don't go away when the book is over, and that's magical.
But what I'll say is, and this is what I'll say, it's not just that they all exist in this universe, it's that he transports you into that universe in a way that feels so visceral.
Right. And I'm like with other stories or other books, like when the book ends, I'm like, oh, those characters aren't my friends anymore. They moved to a different state. You have that feeling. Mm-hmm. But with King, it's like, yeah, they're still right there. Like the persistence of his world projects beyond your personal experience with it. And that's a powerful, magical thing to me.
Exactly. All right. So if you would like to talk about the magic that is Stephen King, if you would like to talk about Din Djarin, Grogu, or any of our heroes here in The Mandalorian, or anything that you did not like, maybe you just said nope, don't like it. You can write to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, at gmail.com. Or call us at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. If you leave us a voice message, we will play that on the air if you like. And if you don't even like this show but want to find a show you do like, go down to Linktree, that's linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. You're going to find links to all of the shows on the Capes and Lunatics Network, including Salty and Petty, where the great Little Hellfire and Phil podcast Perich will eventually dissect something you love and something you hate. So that could be good too.
What a great name for a podcast, Salty and Petty. I love it.
It is great. And you can also buy merch and give us money if you want. And in the meantime, Mozz, how can people find you to reach out to you directly to tell you how much they too love Stephen King or R.L. Stine?
all have their places, but they all have their places. But they can reach out to me via email at mozzmanzor@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way, like our mothers and fathers once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And find me on the Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it, including recently Gotham Knights, which I may not feel like live tweeting again, but maybe I will, at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIEESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties, you've come to the end of another voyage on the turbulent Sargassus that is the internet. Please come back again next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg.
All right. Okay. That's appropriate. It decides to do that. I gotta figure this camera out. It's really there's a whole bunch of settings I gotta figure. It just keeps going to the shutter. Anyways, all right. Can we just do this one for today and do the next one on Wednesday?
Sure, that's fine.
Oh.
Okay, send it off.